Kevin says Samoa Joe. Yeah, another great option there. When he made the jump to NXT, great pickup. Again, someone that I didn't think we were going to see in the WWE, and we finally got him, and the rest is history. It's just a shame that he was presented so much better on NXT than the WWE. Should have won the WWE title. You could argue he could have won the Universal title. Do you remember when he was in that feud against Brock Lesnar? I believe it was Great Balls of Fire in 2017. Right then and there, that should have been when they crowned Samoa Joe the Universal Champion. That is, it's ridiculous that they didn't capitalize on him. He would go on to be a future AEW champion, but the way WWE fumbled Samoa Joe needs to be studied. Tyler asks if I have any thoughts on Vince McMahon. He fumbled him. Any thoughts on it? I love Uncle Howdy. He's killing it now. Vince McMahon, see, the problem with him is he was just so stuck in his ways. And they say that he lived in a bubble that was the WWE. He didn't consume any other type of media or any other type of content. And once you reach a certain age, you don't want to change things. You want to keep them the way they are. And I think that's what happened with Vince, which I think it's so good. And I'm so grateful that he's no longer with them, because we're getting fresh ideas, stuff that's contemporary, stuff that is relevant to today's society. And especially as pro wrestling fans, we're being exposed to more things that we want to see. Whereas with Vince, remember the last few years with Vince where we saw someone like Chad Gable being presented as Shorty G, or seeing Roman Reigns getting dog food piled all over him, or even if you remember Bobby Lashley's segment with I believe it was Sami Zayn, where he had like the three sisters of Bobby Lashley. Like, there was certain stuff that Vince was providing from like 2019 to 2022 that was questionable. Like, what was he thinking in his senile mind? I'll give him his credit. Vince McMahon, some of his greatest ideas were great, but some of his worst ideas were god awful. And I think we're better off with Triple H, handling creative right now. Tyler says, I miss Keith Lee. I miss Keith Lee too, and it's one of the greatest mysteries of what would have been with Keith Lee. He had a great run in NXT, winning the North American title and the NXT championship simultaneously. And to see again, that's another thing with Vince, when he presented Keith Lee as like Bearcat Keith Lee. Why? He was doing so well in NXT as Limitless Keith Lee. And why? They changed him, and it essentially killed all his momentum. I go back to Survivor Series. Remember in 2019, we talked about it, where NXT invaded and they had the 5 versus 5 versus 5, and the final two, Keith Lee versus Roman Reigns. And they went toe to toe against each other and provided one of the best finishes in a Survivor Series traditional matchup. Had all the momentum. Then you go to the Royal Rumble in 2020, and he had that great face-off against Brock Lesnar. They killed his momentum. And now where's Keith Lee? He went to All Elite Wrestling, but we haven't seen him in so long. I hope everything's okay. If it's a personal issue, if it's a health scare, we don't know. So I hope he's doing well. I wish him nothing but the best. But it does annoy me the way that they fumbled Keith Lee. Specifically Vince, because everything ran through him. Keith Lee, again, another one of those guys who had the charisma, he had the moveset, he had the potential to be a star in the WWE, and they fumbled it. Bearcat Keith Lee. I will never forget seeing that and thinking, what the heck are they doing? But again, he's signed All Elite Wrestling, had a tag team title run with Swerve Strickland. And aside from that, we don't know what happened. That's another thing with AEW. Sometimes it's like, what are they doing over there? Again, I can't assume, because maybe something it's in his personal life or it's an injury. Again, we wish him the best. But it boggles my mind that there's some talent out there like a Keith Lee who does. And again, Tyler mentions Miro. Miro's another one. Miro's another one, whether it's WWE or AEW. Let's go back to WWE. Rusev Day got so over. Rusev and Aiden English managed to get something as silly as Rusev Day over. And they gave him a US title run that was very brief. And then his marriage to Lana was presented on TV. And they had him feud with freaking Bobby Lashley, who I love. I'm a fan of Bobby Lashley. I love what the Hurt Syndicate is doing right now. But then they have Lana basically break up with Rusev, go with Bobby, and they consistently embarrassed Rusev, buried his momentum, and threw him away, forcing him to go to AEW. Why do they do that? Why do they kill? Or I should say back then, why would they do that? Kill momentum. When everyone was on the side of Rusev, people pushed him in 2014 when he debuted. And they thought he was going to be a world champion. He was a dominant US champion that had a good match against Cena. And we're thinking he's going to be a world champion. But they buried his momentum. And then AEW had him run with the TNT title, which is cool. I like the Redeemer stuff. I really like the Redeemer stuff. His stuff with Eddie Kingston, I enjoyed. And then they brought back Lana, CJ Perry. And then from then, again, the momentum was lost. Tyler says maybe it's mental health issues. Yeah. I mean, that's a possibility. We don't know. Tyler's 100% right, though. It could be that. And of course, it's nothing but speculation because we don't know for sure. All we can do is hope that they're doing well and that eventually they are in a state where they are happy and they are healthy, because above all else, that's what matters most. Tyler says, how about Dolph Ziggler too? Man, we're just going to start ranting today, aren't we, huh, Tyler? Dolph Ziggler had everything. The look, the athleticism. He was over with the crowd, whether it was a baby face or heel. They gave him a shot and gave him the money in the bank. He had one of the best cash-ins on Del Rio. Won the world title. Unfortunately, had a couple of concussions that, again, slowed down his momentum. He had a great moment at the Survivor Series in 2014 where he was the sole survivor for Team Cena. And that was the peak. That was the height of his powers. He never really got a fair shake at the main event scene. This is a guy who had all the talent in the world. And he could sell like no one else. Oh my God, like Dolph Ziggler he should have been a legend in the WWE. But it wasn't meant to be. Tyler says, I'm so happy about Dolph. He's in TNA. And it's going to be fire. Yeah, when Dolph Ziggler made the jump, he goes by Nick Nemeth now, his real name. And he's been the TNA champion since the spring, I believe. Was it Rebellion? I think he might have won it at. He's been the TNA World Champion. And I'm so happy that Nick Nemeth, formerly known as Dolph Ziggler, is getting that opportunity that he sorely earned in the WWE. So maybe with this run, he has a great run as a TNA champion, puts on banger of matches. Maybe that opens the door for him to return to the WWE, like Drew McIntyre, like Cody Rhodes. I mean, he is a little older, but They say distance makes the heart grow fonder. Maybe that's what he needs. Maybe that's what he needs. But Dolph Ziggler again, another guy who didn't get a fair shake and just had his momentum derailed. He was stuck in tag teams with Robert Roode, the Dirty Dogs, and I like Robert Roode. I got nothing against him, but when you have those two paired up to do nothing, his last like great feat in WWE, he won the NXT Championship. Remember that? Before he dropped it to Braun Breaker. They were using NXT almost like as a way to heat him up and give him momentum while also giving NXT the rub. But unfortunately, Ziggler's gone. He's with TNA, and he's doing great in TNA. Him and his brother having that opportunity to work together is awesome, and hopefully they're better off for it working in TNA.